Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and we are back. We are back. Oh, 2 weeks. Last Sunday we didn't have a show. All I posted was there was a medical emergency, and everybody was fine. My wife had a collapse Saturday night. She fainted. She is fine. We got a lot of doctor's tests, a lot of things we're looking into. Blood work's normal. We're just trying to figure that out. But after a 3-hour visit in the ER, not getting home till 1:30 a.m. and being back up at 6 a.m., I wasn't doing a show. I actually had an inkling to. I was going to do open lines. There's a lot I want to talk about. I've told you about my son Liam's past life stuff before. Well, some stuff, new information's come out. We get in open lines, I'll probably tell that story. But tonight, we have a very, very interesting guest. I've been reading his book, Dr. Fredrick Woodard. His new book is Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, Connecting with an Interactive Universe. I've been reading this book, truly enjoying it, because he is a clinical psychologist and a certified hypnotherapist, and he has listened and analyzed people's stories of their paranormal, or supernatural, I should say, supernatural experiences, all ranging from all kinds. And it's hard to find people in this clinical field, doctors and people, to take these subjects seriously. So I'm really enjoying his book. It's a very deep, insightful look at these experiences that people have. And I think they have all the time and don't talk to people about it. And it's great when you have a professional like him who will be open-minded and listen about it. And I want to get into that tonight in that book. He's also, like I said, a hypnotherapist. We can get into some of that. His other book was Perceptual Hypnosis, A Spiritual Journey Towards Expanding Awareness. There's a lot we got to get into. We're going to run out of time. Of course, a lot of World Wide Web of weird, so let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest is actually here with us now. He's going to join us for the World Wide Web of Weird. How you doing tonight, Dr. Fredrick? Oh, unmute yourself, though.
Glad I could make it, and you invited me on the show.
Yeah, it's a true honor to have you on the show. Like I told you before, if anything piques your interest in the World Wide Web weird tonight, go ahead and join in on that conversation. We have usually 7 stories, and we about 25 minutes to cover them. But I love hearing other people's perspective on these stories, so don't be afraid to jump in. Of course, joining me as always is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you. I'm so happy to be back.
I know. That's why I was getting an inkling last, I was starting to think maybe I'll do open lines. I don't know. Going a week without a show and the crap hit the fan. So I missed you. And then I missed Rob from St. Augustine, Florida. It's been a couple weeks. How you doing, bud? Nice to have you back.
Yeah. Good to be here.
I think tonight I have at least one of the stories you guys covered on the Weird Wednesday. I didn't get to watch Weird Wednesday. It's been a long week. But I think I have one of them. Did you guys do the flame-throwing dog, robot dog? Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought so. I'm saving that for last so I can get on my soapbox and yell at people. But speaking of that, we got a lot of weird to get to, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, we're going to do an updated story because 2 years ago, we covered a story about a fisherman who was found, who shot his friend because he thought somehow drugs, you know how that goes, were probably involved. And he shot his friend because he thought his friend summoned Bigfoot to eat him. Well, now it's gone to trial. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network on Talkstream Live's Paranormal Radio app, we are a live webcast streaming out to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch if you want to come watch. We do have some videos tonight. Or just listen on there as best as possible. So, yeah, this one was back in 2022. We covered this story. And now, 2 years later, justice system, it moves so fast, is now gone to trial. The bizarre murder trial, which took place in Pontotoc County, Oklahoma, concerned a Bigfoot-related killing. Back in July of 2022, they were reported on the bizarre case of a man who had murdered his friend because he believed that he had summoned Bigfoot and had intended to feed his body to the creature. The incident had occurred along the South Canadian River in Pontotoc County, Oklahoma, where the two men, both 53, had been noodling a form of fishing form of fishing. I'm thinking like they're cuddling. Form of fishing using only the hands. My best friend Brian would be like, he's a big fisherman. According to the reports, one of the men had become convinced that his friend had intended to summon Bigfoot from the forest, kill him, and then float his body down the stream as food for the creature. He appeared to be under the influence of something. Yeah, we figured. Sheriff John Christian said at the time. Now, following a trial in Oklahoma, the defendant, Larry Sanders, has been charged with first-degree murder of Jimmy Knighton during a methamphetamine-induced psychosis. Again, he now faces a life in prison without any possibility of parole. You're... Dr. Fredrick, you're a clinical psychologist. So, I know drugs are bad, but I think a lot of times people that do drugs are already mentally unstable to do something like this. But man, what elaborate paranoia!
Actually, drug and alcohol is a separate thing from psychology. You have to have special training in drugs and alcohol to work with that.
But I'm just saying, for somebody to come up with that deep a paranoid problem, there's more going on.
I mean,
yeah.
To think he was, his friend was summoning Bigfoot is one thing, but then to float
his body to it,
to feed him to Bigfoot. Okay, that's a whole nother level.
Again. All right, moving on. But I had to give an update on that story. We covered that 2 years ago. It finally went to trial. He's guilty. All right, moving on. Now, this story, this is a video we're going to play. We've had a number of flying humanoids. Now, you're going to see this and be like, God, this looks familiar. This looks so much like a couple others we've had over the years. You can already tell by the picture, right? So this one, let's see, Unexplained Mysteries, I got that. We've seen a lot of videos of pictures over the years of strange, sometimes indescribable objects in the sky. But this particular example is perhaps one of the weirdest we've seen so far. Footage of the anomalous object, which was filmed over Sequoia Park in California, was shared last week by Twitter user 528 Vibes, who described it as a flying humanoid. Now, excuse me, you'll hear people in the background talking. I don't think this is shenanigans, even though the provenance, is 528 Vibes is all we got for the provenance of this. But I think it's legit, because we've had several of these over the years, and I don't know what to say about them. We got some more articles I feel like in tie with this.
Well, they're
supernatural beings.
practicing in these outfits to help rescue people off of mountainsides, things like that, besides just our military.
Yeah.
So, we're going to see more.
Is it a
and more.
jetpack guy or something like that? I don't know. This is odd. Go ahead and play the video.
I don't know nothing about no Moldavia.
Actually, I don't know.
God, I can't even see it. What the hell's wrong with
No, it's straight up and down. No,
This video goes on for like 3 minutes. I only did a little bit of it,
Oh,
Yeah?
like a minute.
Uh-oh, Iron Man, sorry.
Go ahead and mute it, because I'm pretty sure I didn't have any swearing going on, but you never know if I miss something. You can hear.
Somebody
Yeah.
on my post made a Star Wars reference to it.
One straight up and down and staying that way.
It's got my favorite line in it. I don't know nothing about no Moldavian.
Oh, I know which one it is. King of the Hugo Mundo. Looks like the famous photograph of a humanoid appearing behind a little girl in a photograph. I know what you're talking about, and it's slipping my mind. It's very famous. Men in Black involved. It was in, Scotland, I think? I can't remember. Somewhere in England or Scotland or Ireland. I can't remember. One of those places. I remember it's a famous case. You're talking about a famous case. And it's like a white astronaut suit kind of guy appears behind this little girl. Famous case, and my brain's totally not functioning enough to remember. But it does remind me of that, too, a little bit. But we've had a lot of these floating, people in the sky things like this, and they're, glowing.
I sometimes wonder if this isn't, some sort of hologram thing they're trying out, too.
Right. That's what my wife said about it. She's like, they're going to do that hologram stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another update story we'll get to so we don't run out of time. We covered, this is last year now already, I can't believe. The family in Vegas. The whole seeing 10-foot aliens and all that. I still don't know what to think about this case. I really don't. But it's taken on a religious turn, and I noticed it did early on in the case when you listen to Angel, the one boy, the main person talking, is starting to talk about stories and weird things, like one before the aliens ever showed up in their backyard that they saw. They talked to this woman who grabbed him and said, "You're going aliens, 10-foot aliens are coming. They're going to eat people." Then they had this happen, and that his family felt they were demons. Well, he's gotten more into this because now, of course, it's on the news. And you can see here they did another interview. And then I got the Unexplained Mysteries article here. Family reported that an object had crashed in their yard last year has since been plagued by paranormal experiences. The strangest began on April 30th last year when a family in Las Vegas reported that some sort of unknown object had come down from the sky and crash landed in their backyard. Short time later, one of the family phoned the police to report the incident. There's an 8-foot person beside the object and another one inside, and it has big eyes and it's looking at us, and it's still there, he told the dispatcher. You remember this? Yeah, we covered it quite extensively. They're very large. They're 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. They look like they're aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes. I can't explain it. It's big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're human. They're 100% not human. When officers attended the scene, several other members of the same family corroborated the sighting. Other residents also confirmed it. Blah, blah, blah. We covered this. But what he's getting into now is Angel Kenmore is his name, who reported all this. He now maintains that the non-human entity he saw that day was possibly a demon, and that the family's home has since been plagued by paranormal activity. In one instance, a Christian cross that was in the house was reportedly observed floating upside down in the air, while Jesus' figurine had been ripped off and thrown across the room by an unseen force. My biggest thing with the case that I felt was weird is the whole, after it all happened, Homeland Security, and yes, it was Homeland Security, put up cameras in their yard. There was thinking of Doug Papa is an investigative journalist in Las Vegas who really extensively first wanted to cover this hardcore, talk to the family, and former police officer, and he didn't understand that either. It was, and they made it look like it was ordered through the state police, who had no idea or record of it. Find out it was Homeland Security, and then I think it was the Attorney General or somebody of the state admitted to this. And it's like, oh, if anybody has fear for their lives, we're going to put Homeland Security cameras in their backyard. I don't know what's going on there. I don't. The whole thing seems really odd to me. I don't want to write off what happened to these people. Angel's story has changed here and there. That's why Doug Papa, he's not into the paranormal. He's a cop, former cop. So when this kid started adding stuff to the story or changing it, he got called out on it, and this guy, he's done with the case. I don't know. It's a weird one. Let's move on. More about supernatural creatures. We're going to be talking about the supernatural tonight. These cases, we've covered so many of these on the World Wide Web of Weird, and they are so fascinating to me. This is another mass hysteria case. This time, again, we've had a number of them from Malaysia, but we've had them in a number of different places, South America. We've had them, these instances of schools with kids that have these hysteria. So this one I got from Tim Binnell from Coast to Coast. In a strange story out of Malaysia, a staggering 50 boarding school students were overcome with hysteria, and one patient claims that the eerie event was caused by a supernatural creature sighting. The weird incident reportedly occurred this past Sunday afternoon at the Special Model National Secondary School in the community of Bata Kikir. According to the administration, 31 girls and 19 boys were affected by the contagious panic attack that caused them to scream and cry. While school officials offered no explanation for what was behind the bizarre case of mass hysteria, a mother of the student has come forward with a particularly chilling claim, and this is a weird story. This is what she says. My child saw a creature resembling a friend calling them to the field. The unnamed woman said, explaining that the sighting was understandably unnerving as her daughter's companion was next to her and also looking at the doppelganger. So before I go on, so she's there with her friend, and she sees her friend standing across from her, even her friend standing right there. Doppelganger, right? The doppelganger was presumably able to take on the appearance by the way of some kind of supernatural power. At first, her friend screamed, and then it spread to others, including my daughter, before each began to cry, the mother revealed. Fortunately, her friend managed to hold her back from going into the field. As one might imagine, the woman's wild assertion has not yet been confirmed by school officials, who simply sent the students home for a week so that they could recover from mysterious instances. I've also proposed the hypothesis on this, that is it that just some of these schools and hear about, hey, you heard about the one school where the kids had mass hysteria and they didn't have school for a week? Hey, everybody. Let's have mass hysteria and we get out of school for a week. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm not. I don't know. You as a psychologist, what is your thoughts on mass hysteria events like this?
Well, that's what mass hysteria implies. Hysteria. Mm-hmm. It implies it's not real.
But then it's
real in their mind, but it's not like a real event.
But if two people are witnessing the doppelganger, if that really happened, then it's something more than mass hysteria.
Oh, if two people witness it, yeah, that could be. But I'm saying that
did, according to this story, that's the thing. It's about who witnessed what.
I remember a teacher in Torrington, Connecticut, who wrote a book and had taken all these stories from these kids. And as the kids got older and they became teenagers, they started forgetting everything that they had remembered when they were younger.
Really?
But he had all these stories written down.
See, we've covered so many of these mass hysteria stories, and they're usually, like I said, Malaysia. We've had them in Thailand. We've had them in South America, Chile, Puerto Rico, and Peru.
Well, this wasn't mass hysteria. It was more like individual cases. But
yeah, but I'm just saying where all these students have the major freak out, flip out, and it's either demons involved or ghosts. It's just so interesting that why does this keep happening? And it seems more.
Yeah, that's true.
But it hasn't happened here in the U.S. I've been waiting for one of these things to happen here in the U.S. That's what I've been waiting for. Not that we don't have enough problems in our school system, but let's move on. All right, next up, and we don't get into politics here. I don't care about your political opinions because they're boring. And Tucker Carlson is definitely a political figure. I know many people I respect and love don't like him. That's fine. We can all differ in our opinion. But I've been saying about with all the openness about UFOs that more of these people are going to come out about it. Now, Tucker's covered UFOs, when he was on Fox News. And, he's gotten into it. But now recently he's speaking as I'm seeing a lot of this on the more right Christian conservative talking side. They have a voice, about them being supernatural beings. This is the article from Unexplained Mysteries. Speaking during a recent episode of Joe Rogan Experience, Carlson, who is certainly no stranger to controversial views, outlined what he thought about UFO phenomenon. Rather than implying UFOs are piloted by extraterrestrial visitors from another planet, Carlson put forward the idea that these objects are instead controlled by some sort of spiritual entities that may have been present on Earth for as long as humankind. There are tons of evidences from him that they are under the ocean and under the ground. Wow, Tucker, I didn't know that you're there. You're there now. Okay. They've been here for a long time, and it's pretty clear to me that they are spiritual entities. He further clarified this point by explaining that by spiritual, he meant that these beings are above the observable nature and do not behave according to laws of science. What have we covered like the last several weeks with our alien contactee guests? We've had several on that they are like, there at least some aspect of this phenomenon. There are these spiritual beings. They are beyond our dimension. That's what he's getting into here. You got really knocked for this, I guess, a little bit. Probably from the one side going, "They're demons." I don't know. The first chapter of Ezekiel is pretty clear on UFO sightings, he said. Whenever I use... Oh, no, this was about Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett, another kind of conservative, who I really like. I really like Tim Burchett. The first chapter of Ezekiel is pretty clear on UFO sightings. Whenever I use the term angels, to me, it's a synonymous with extra-dimensional beings. But you'll notice, left, right, doesn't matter. People are coming out talking about this. That's the only good thing about this whole silly, like, oh, yeah, the government's disclosing. No, it's giving people opportunity and room to talk about these things. So... on both political sides, because politics is stupid. Okay, moving on. Before we run out of time, because we're going to get 5 minutes. All right, this one, you know I love to talk about this. You know, we've had, who was Barry Goldwater on, and Steve Mera, who I really respect and love, and they went down to Peru and did the whole Peruvian mummy analysis and really showed that it was a bunch of garbage. That there is taking Peruvian mummies, making them sound like they're aliens, or doing stuff to them to make them think they're aliens, and then selling the stuff on black market. And well, here's the museum involved in a lot of this. A museum in Argentina is one Peruvian mummy foot after authorities raided the attraction, recovered the appendage along with dozens of other antiques. According to local media reports, the operation occurred on Wednesday morning when the federal police and Interpol agents descended upon the Museo del Ovni, located in the city of Victoria. The popular tourist attraction has reportedly been run out of the home of researcher Sylvia Perez Samadi, you say her name, since 2005, and features a fantastic facade depicting various objects of UFO phenomena. Within the museum are a library of presentation space and array of exhibits. Although the artifacts have undoubtedly been a display at the museum for years, its presence there apparently only recently came to attention of officials of the Peruvian embassy in Argentina. Upon learning about the mummy's foot, they alerted Argentina authorities to what they believe to be a violation of the agreement between the two countries when they protect against illegal trade of cultural archaeological artifacts. So much of this is going on. There's like so much of this. You know, we talked about this several years ago with Barry Goldwater and Steve Mera about the legal selling of these artifacts, especially for people that think they're alien. And Hami Musan and their involvement and people like that. You know, I'm an Ancient Aliens fan. You know, I believe their aliens visited probably ancient Peruvian people, you know. And maybe there are alien Peruvian mummies, but there's been a lot of shenanigans when you get into the Peruvian mummies thing. I know the Gaia Network and Coast to Coast and all them really get into it, but I'm not a very big fan of it. I don't think it's, you know, if it's legitimate, well, all right, let's get it out there. Let's get some real archaeological and let's take a look at these scientifically. And you say they do, but then you find out the people they say are scientists aren't scientists. There's just a lot of crap involved with Peruvian mummies and a lot of legal stuff, as we see here. All right, let's move on to the last one. This is one that was on Weird Wednesday. I knew they would have to talk about, and I got to talk about. Like, you know, it's crazy when life comes up with things that are even more scarier than the damn sci-fi movies thought of.
And they turned down Elon's drone. Remember, he wanted to have a drone equipped with
a flamethrower,
and they said no.
But they're gonna let this. Either one's bad. You know, death from the sky or death from a robot dog. You know, but why are we putting flamethrowers on robots?
You can operate this from your phone if that glitches
or is hacked.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had that, you know, like whole movie thing with by Obama Productions on Netflix there about everything like Tesla's going nuts and trying to run people over. Like AI and stuff. This is bad. I remember that movie with Tom Selleck from when I was a kid. What was that movie where all the robots go nuts? He's like a cop and all the robots go nuts. They didn't even have flamethrowers. They were at least smart enough in that future society in the 80s depiction of it that they didn't give robots flamethrowers. Damn, Tom Selleck would have been screwed. This is an Ohio-based company. Throwflame is now selling its terrifying Throminator. Terminator. They're calling it Terminator. Seriously, this is like China calling their social credit system Skynet. This is okay. T2 is a great movie, but it's a warning. It's a warning, along with nuclear, war and all weapons and all that stuff. We are not getting any of those warnings, are we? We are just not. We are just not. This is terrifying. This thing would be terrifying. The robot dogs are kind of scary as it is, and just put a flamethrower on them. They're going to put guns on them. They're going to do all kinds of stupid crap, We get humans, got to find better ways to kill each other. Get robots to do it for us. Terminator, God. Yeah, I told you I was going to get on my soapbox on this one. I'm just saying, like making a C-3PO, great. Making a Terminator robot dog with flamethrower, not great.
Less
not great. But that's it for the Worldwide but Weird. Our guest tonight, Dr. Fredrick Woodard. Developing your supernatural awareness, connecting with the interactive universe is our topic tonight. We will open up the phone lines later in the show for you guys to call in and join this conversation with our guest tonight. But got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and it's commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping, haunted horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Dr. Fredrick Woodard. Dr. Fredrick is a clinical psychologist and certified hypnotherapist who conducts original research on the supernatural, paranormal, hypnosis, and psychotherapy. His research stems from his dissatisfaction with general psychological explanations of hypnosis and altered states, which have not reflected his own personal and clinical experience. His first book, Perceptual Hypnosis, A Spiritual Journey Towards Expanding Awareness, describes his theoretical approach to perceptual awareness, spirituality, and hypnosis. He first presented his approach in his doctoral dissertation in 2001 and in a series of 11 peer-reviewed articles and psychological reports between 2003 and 2014. His first journal article, Hypnosis and Phenomenological Perceptual Psychology, was published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology in March of 1996. As he used his approach to developing enhanced awareness in his clinical practices with well-adjusted individuals seeking to explore and expand their human potential and achieve self-growth. Dr. Woodard's private practice is located in Milford, New Hampshire. He's a member of the American Psychological Association, the New Hampshire Psychological Association, the Society of Psychological Hypnosis, Division 30 of APA, and the Society of Scientific Exploration. He's received a doctorate of philosophy in clinical psychology from California School of Professional Psychology at Fresno, California. He also has attended 3 master's degrees in different areas of psychology from California School of Professional Psychology. He's trained in hypnosis at the Milton Erickson Institute of Phoenix and has also done extensive training in clinical hypnotherapy as part of his training as a psychotherapy. Dr. Woodard is a direct grandson also of Chief Madagwanda, if I probably got that wrong, great shaman of the Abenaki Nation of the 1600s. He's also a descendant of Charlemagne and a distant cousin of Alanis Morissette, Celine Dion, Ernest Hemingway, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Like those of his ancestors who demonstrated creative thinking or fought for individual freedoms and rights, Dr. Woodard emphasizes freedom of thought in his writings as he's devoted himself to examining the subjective experiences and supernatural awareness and altered states of consciousness. And I'm really truly enjoying his new book, Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, Connecting with the Interactive Universe. You get a lot of different people's personal supernatural experiences. And as I say on the show, as being into the paranormal, it's like a treat when somebody shares these experiences with us on the show or in person. And this book I'm really getting into because you get a lot of these personal experiences. So we're going to get into the night, open up the phone lines, but let's go ahead and get to our guest. Welcome to the show, Dr. Woodard. It's an honor to have you on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, like I said, I've been reading your book. I'm like a quarter of the way in, but I'm really enjoying it. One of the things I always say on the show, one of the things I feel privileged, when people find out I'm in the paranormal, they tell me they're usually some kind of experience they've had. And sometimes it's like, oh, I lived in this haunted house, or I saw this UFO. But my favorite ones are along the lines, a lot of the ones you have in these books, these really personal, supernatural experiences people have. So I'm really, truly enjoying that tonight. So we're going to get into some of these experiences that you can share with us. But for you, being a professional, being a clinical psychologist, a certified hypnotherapist, what led you down this road to being open-minded to these subjects?
Well, the funny thing is, I had a lot of, at the beginning of my career, I had a lot of people tell me a story. They'd tell me a paranormal story, a supernatural awareness story, and there would be an event that happened inside of them, and then it happened in the real world. And they were shocked that what they thought became real. And it made a lot of sense to me. And then when I decided to pursue my education, I wanted to have a field where it wouldn't be in conflict with what I was wanting to study. So research and do things like that.
Yeah.
So I picked psychology, which I felt had an open mind to those things. Not everybody, but some people do have an open mind.
As a psychologist, you should listen to what people tell you anyways. A good part of it, I think, the best, people that are in psychology or are listening to what the person says and getting them to, you say this in your book, one of the ways that you interview people is that somebody says how they feel about something, you make them expand on it, explain it. I think that's a very important. I do that as interviewing people as a paranormal investigator.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll just use the words you said. Can you say more about that? So it's not altering what they've said. It's not saying, well, you said this, and adding this like twist to it that's not there.
Yeah. There's a famous UFO case. I don't know if I want to say it because people could be fans. There was a certain UFO investigator who went into a school that had seen supposedly a mass sighting of UFO and aliens and all this stuff. If you really do the research and see how he investigated, he interjected things to these kids. About like were the aliens blue, or don't say aliens, don't interject anything, just let these kids tell their story,
and about if they were telepathic or not. I think
the whole telepathic thing came out later. People could really start getting to know what case. It's controversial. People argue about it. There's been a Netflix documentary on it, but I'm just saying this kind of thing does happen in the paranormal field. Investigators go in. I think it's important for people to have, I'm not a psychologist, but I realize the importance of letting people really just express and tell the experience without you interjecting. Now, I get accused of interjecting on this show with my guests all the time, but in that investigative sense, or getting to hear people and figure out what happened, is the best thing to do is to really explore what they're describing, without interjecting.
Right. Sometimes you have to, and that's usually when things aren't okay.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to look into it a little differently.
Now, what in this book are you have, we'll get into the 12 key findings. I want to get into that, but what are the experiences that we're really delving into? What are these kind of different kinds of supernatural experiences you cover in this book?
Well, there's a number of them that out of the blue, the first thought that comes to your mind, time and space, ethical, using your supernatural skills ethically was one chapter that I had, where the people most of the people in it were doing it right. But there was one particular person that actually told me, "You're going to tell me I go into crowds and I take people's energy, and you're going to tell me that's wrong, right? You're going to tell me that's wrong, but they don't protect themselves." And I was like, "Yeah, that's true. I'm going to tell you that's wrong."
Yeah.
But
I believe in psychic vampires. And I have to give kudos to a show called What We Do in the Shadows, because it's about vampires. It's a comedy about vampires that live together. It's about vampires that live together.
There is lots of different kinds, and
but they made an energy vampire. Like that's a real there are energy vampires.
There are people that just enjoy taking your energy, getting you upset, even if you don't show it on the outside, but on the inside you're upset. They sense it. They feel it,
feed on it,
and they enjoy it. They smile.
Go look up Colin Robinson is the character from What We Do in the Shadows, and this is the first time I've seen like an energy vampire depicted in something fictional, and I'm like, dude, this is so straight on, dead on what like an energy vampire is, and like he does it by literally draining people's energy by annoying them with like long conversations about nothing. And I like there are people that do that, and they have different ones in the show, like poor me people that like drain your energy because their life is so bad, and they keep just draining your energy. You know, it's like this is such a thing. This is such a thing. So you told this person that said they're a psychic vampire, that they're literally take people's.
Well,
energy.
I told this person that they shouldn't do that.
What was their response?
Well, I can because they don't protect themselves.
Protect themselves. What did they feel like it did for them? Like the energy, they just gave them more like feel good, or
well, it's never fulfilling. You always need more.
Yeah, like like drugs, crack. Yeah, psychic energy like that. It's probably has some kind of downside, like it's addicting.
Yeah, but it's never enough.
Yeah.
And people like me that are like really empathetic have to watch out for that, because they'll flock to us like moths to a flame and just want to keep using you for whatever they can get out of you.
Yeah, I've learned to be able to really care about somebody, but keep it here, not let it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very important. It's very important for people who are empathetic. I am the same as Jamie, and I've learned that lesson the hard way, sadly. But I've learned that lesson, and I do. I try to keep people that only the people are really close to me.
I can care a real lot,
yeah,
but I don't let it get into me.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. I think people. I don't think people. Well, I think that's what's important about your book tonight about supernatural awareness, is that people don't think about these things in terms of like they don't realize what's happening to them. You know what I'm saying? They don't realize their energy is being drained by somebody. They might know it in some way, like, God, I don't want to be around that person. Like they feel it, they know it, but they don't really understand the dynamic that's happening.
Right. I was working on my PhD, and I came home, and I had an older relative who enjoyed picking on me, and he made a negative comment, and I looked at him and I said, "I'm really sorry you have negative thoughts inside your head about me." He never bothered me again.
You turned it on them.
But it worked in that one case. I'm not saying it would work in every case, but in that particular, he looked for new people.
Well, it's because you didn't give him what he was looking for.
Right. I didn't have any feeling inside that was upsetting. None.
Yeah, you don't react to what they're trying to get you to react to.
Right.
They want that either, they want that, like Colin Robinson, they want you to just feel annoyed, please go away, like you gotta be Buddha or something. I don't know, like shut that down.
Why I've never understood why people, when they know somebody's trying to get under their skin and saying things just to get to them, why they give it to them. Why do they react and give them that reaction?
Try teaching that to your
upset.
Try teaching that to your 8-year-old, because that happened with mine just recently, where he put a kid in a headlock and gave him a bloody nose because the kid wouldn't stop leaving him alone and call him a dumbass. And I'm like, well, now you just gave him liable to accuse you of everything because he
Gave
said he didn't
him
give him
your
money.
power.
Yeah, I said you gave him all the power. You gave him exactly what that kid wanted. Maybe he didn't want the bloody nose, but in a way, you gave him what he wanted because he wanted your attention.
Yeah.
And like you gave him the power by reacting badly, and now you're grounded.
Yeah, some people can't. They don't have the ability to make those connections that you're talking about. They can't make those connections.
I think a lot of
people over time learn to do it, but they have to have a moment where something connects so they can do that.
Now, I in your book, you do describe like early on in your childhood, kind of your first little bit of a supernatural experience, and maybe it seems mundane to you or not, but you know, you had this kind of moment of I've had similar with a bird. A thought about God and this bird showing up. I've had similar things, experiences.
Oh, and you mean in my other book?
I thought that was I read it in this book.
Was it in this book?
It was in this book.
It was.
I haven't read your other book. I'm interested in it though.
I had a bird. I when I was very young, I felt a lot of times that people were very selfish in their interactions, and I was always trying to just be connected to them. And so I was standing there in my front yard and I said to God, why can't people be more loving? And a white pigeon came and landed 10 feet away from me, a pure white pigeon. I didn't know at the time that meant anything, but later on I realized that was important, a pure white bird.
But the thing is, what I thought about that when I read that in your book is that you might not have known at the time that it was important, but something in you did, that you remembered it.
Yeah.
Like you knew it was special. You felt it.
I did. I just didn't know what it meant. But
so I've had
later
lot of
on
weird,
I learned it.
Well, I've had my earliest memories. I've had what you would describe as these supernatural experiences. I've had a lot. Everybody's heard all my stories tonight. You know that watches the show. They know my stories, but I've had a ton, from ghost, aliens, not Bigfoot or cryptoid, but about everything else. Just a ton of weird supernatural experiences, and I've always asked myself, I don't want to feel like I'm special or anything like that. But it's like, have I been wired because of my original experiences at such a young age to be aware of them? That these things happen around people all the time, they're just not aware enough to recognize it.
Yeah.
Like you were aware at that age, in some way, you're wired to recognize that meant something with the bird.
Yeah, and I had an experience that's in my book that was at the Concord Library. I had run out of ideas for what to do because I had done everything, and I couldn't make a connection between my grandfather, who was in the Revolutionary War, and his father. I got him all the way back up to him and all the way forward back to him, but I couldn't connect the two of them. And I was in the Concord State Library, the genealogy library, and I couldn't make the connection. And then I went to turn around, and there was these three old men that were sitting at a table talking, and one of their voices in my head bellowed, "Check the land deeds." So I went to the Nashua, and I ordered the land deeds for Pittsford, Vermont. And one of the land deeds actually had the information that made the connection to the mother and the son.
When I read that, I wondered, you said you heard, you talked about the gentleman over there that are mumbling and talking, but you hear it in your head, right? You heard it as a voice in your head?
Yeah, it was really him. It was really him.
So you think he telepathically was giving you that, or
I don't.
purposely?
I have a theory that the old Romans and Greeks, way back in time, used to say, "Never mistreat anyone. You never know when you're talking to a god or a goddess."
Right.
And I don't mean literally. I think it comes through that person. To you. It's not necessarily that person that's the god or goddess, but the
it's
information.
like Christians saying the Holy Spirit's working through somebody. It's that concept I've always loved, because I believe that. I believe God or the Force. I'm a Jedi, right? The Force, whatever spirit works through people that way.
Right.
You know, but I found it interesting that, you know, it sounded like his voice came into your head. I mean, and
then I checked it, and that's one of the key things, the checking. I went and I got the deeds, and the thing was that the land deeds don't usually have relationships in them, but they literally made a big deal out of this relationship.
You would have never thought of that.
Right. One particular document.
You're right. Yeah, I hear you. It reminds me of, I will share this supernatural experience, and I know people have heard it, sorry. My wife is always, she does this thing. We're both paranormal investigators, but she knows I have this like sense when a place is haunted. I try not to think about it if I go on an investigation. I try to put it off to the side and not think about it if I feel that or not, because I don't want it to influence me. But I do. I have a feeling right away about a place a lot of times. So she set me up to go to her girlfriend's new boyfriend's house. And first thing we walked through the door, I turned to my wife. I felt it immediately. I'm like, there's something here in this house. And she goes, oh, he knows already. They had brought me there to see if I would know, because he had been her friend's boyfriend had been having all this weird, crazy stuff happen. And he hands me, after it's revealed that that's why they brought me there. I thought I was just coming over to hang out. He sits this photo albums in front of me. He said, these were left here by the people that lived here before. I don't know what it's about. I know there's pictures of their father in this one photo album. And I had opened it up, started looking. I didn't see any names on it or anything. I saw a picture of the guy in a casket. There's how the photo album pretty much ends. It's a bunch of his World War II stuff and other stuff in there. And there's a picture of him in the casket, and I just blurted out. It was like a voice in my head, something made me blurt this out. I go, his name's William, and he goes by Bill. And the owner stops, looks at me, and goes, yeah, that is his name. He hadn't told us anything about who it was yet. And he's like, that's weird. Okay. And he leaves the room, and then his girlfriend and my wife are like, well, do you know the last name? I'm like, I don't know why I said the first name. But in my mind, I started to hear it sounds like my own inner voice. It wasn't like this where you heard somebody else's voice in your head. It sounds like my own little inner voice, quiet little inner voice just saying, Eiler. I'm like, it's something like Eisler, something like that. And so the owner comes back in the room, and they go, what's the guy's last name? And he goes, Eisler. They're like, oh my God, that's what he just said. And I knew all this stuff. Like, I knew that this guy had been a severe alcoholic. His family left all this stuff of his behind because they had a lot of bad blood with their father in the end. And he was really regretful. And I just knew all this. It was just like a knowing. And so I start telling him that this is what I don't know why I'm saying this. I don't know why. I'm not a psychic. And I start telling him, and I also said that I don't know what, I just started blurting out stuff. I said, there's World War II stuff hidden somewhere in this house that he left, that he hid, and the family didn't know about. It's here somewhere. His girlfriend spent 2 weeks. She finally found a hidden little compartment under the stairwell. There was like a hidden wall. And there was all of his World War II stuff in this chest, just like I said. So all this stuff that was coming to my mind completely, like you said, you verify it afterward. It blew me away. And I remember my guy who trained me, Mike McDowell, in paranormal investigating, I told him all this. And he goes, I love his comment, he goes, yeah, these things happen to paranormal investigators.
That's one of the ways. I remember interviewing a guy for my first book for hypnosis, and I was doing phenomenological interviewing. So I at the very beginning of doing it, what I was saying to him to get him to go through the hypnosis, I had this thought that I should say, you want to open your eyes, but you can keep them closed. But I didn't say it because I didn't say that to anyone else. And when I started to interview him, he said, right at the very beginning, I kept thinking I could open my eyes. And then I finally realized I didn't have to. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Me and my wife do that kind of stuff all the time. Like, it's just being married more 20 years that you know each other. But I swear, even early on, I'd think things that she was thinking. Like, she'd say something out loud. I was just thinking that. Like, things like that. I believe in telepathy. I believe my dog Bella and me could communicate telepathically. Like, I could call her into the room by thinking about it. Weird things like that I've had ever since I was a kid. So I'm a huge believer in the human ability of telepathy, and that we do hear other people's thoughts. I think a lot of people don't realize it.
Yes, that's true. I think so.
Because like I said, for me, I mean, it wasn't that instance was a spirit, I guess, coming through me. It just sounded like my own little voice in my head. And you know, it's like that quiet. If I can quiet my mind, I can hear that little voice. It sounds
Well,
like
I had a mother and a daughter come to therapy, and one day they walked in, and I started talking about tigers, and they looked at each other, and then they looked back at me, and I said, "What? What's going on?" Well, we've been talking about tigers for the last half an hour, and I was like, "Well, I had no idea. Unless they said that, I wouldn't have even known that I had done anything."
Yeah, I've had a lot of those kinds of experiences.
Validation.
Yeah, I've had a lot of those kinds of experiences, you know, like that. And I believe our thoughts and that we're projecting them out, like in a sense, and the other person's receiving it. They just don't understand it. They don't acknowledge that they're receiving that from people. Like I had a boss that she gave off certain I'm also good at reading people's body language. She gave off body language that could tell me when she was frustrated or annoyed, even though she would try to say, I'm fine, you know, like a typical reply. But like I knew what it was. Like I could feel, okay, she's mad at me, even though she put on a good persona, like, you know, everything's fine. You know, I'm like, no, I did something, you need to tell me, you know, what it was. Like I could always tell when energy negatively is directed at me from somebody else. Like when I was in like high school and there was a fight in the cafeteria, that negative energy of those two people fighting made me sick. While everybody else was standing up going, oh, wow, what's going on, fight? I was like getting sick. Like I pick up on that energy. You know, I think some people are more open to it in a sense than others. You know, I think some people are more receptive than others naturally. But in some sense, we're all receiving these signals from people, or we're all connected to some kind of conscious wave that we're perceiving people's thoughts and emotions. We don't realize it, and we take it on and think it's our thoughts and emotions.
See, I was going to say, I think it took me a long time, again, with being empathetic, to first stop and realize, like, if I started feeling a certain way and I got a feeling, it was, okay, what was I just thinking, smelling, doing, you know, at this moment? And then, are these even my feelings that I'm feeling? Am I holding on to something else, you know, that I was just exposed to, and learning to separate myself off of those other feelings? Because I think a lot of times other people, we pick up on it and carry it as ours.
Yes, that's true.
No, exactly. I mean, you as paranormal investigators, you go to haunted location. One of the things, like, you know, I've told other investigators, new investigators, is, you know, you're going to have all this equipment, and it's great, you know, infrared, all the audio recorders, video recorders, all that stuff. But the best instrument is you. How are you feeling right now? What thoughts are happening in your head? Because you know what? The people that are experiencing, because we did residentials, you know, that wasn't like the big old historic haunted places. We did a lot of residentials in my group back in the day. As I wanted to help people understand what they're going through. These people aren't recording or videotaping or doing anything. They're just experiencing it. So you have to experience it. You have to, what are you feeling right now? What thoughts are coming into your head? Think, you know, analyze, feel it. Don't just, you know, push it off like, oh, I feel tired and annoyed right now. Well, why? Is it because you're tired and annoyed, or are you picking up on an energy that's making you feel that way? Because the client might have described that, you know. Sometimes I wouldn't tell my investigators what the client said in interviews because I wanted to see if they had the reactions the client was having. Like they're, in a sense, they're there as a physical sensory tool, in a sense, because they're living, you know, they're in that experience.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. You learn that as a paranormal investigator to analyze what are you experiencing right now. You know, is this something more than your own internal feelings happening? Is it something else influencing it from the outside?
Right. It's sort of like what you said earlier. When someone got in a fight and you got sick and everybody else was like, oh, a fight. Yeah. It's like you were different.
Yeah. Yeah. I realized that at a young age. I'd never enjoyed watching other people fight like other kids would, you know, like, ooh, get them down, you know, like, and they'd cheer it on. I'm like, oh God. Like whenever somebody's angry at me and want to fight me, one of my weaknesses is that I have to like find a way to shut that energy from immobilizing me, because if there's a lot of direct anger at me, it makes me like clench up in my stomach and sick. I have that problem, and I think it is because I'm highly empathetic. You know, recognizing it like Jamie does too. You know, like you have to recognize when you're being influenced by that. You know, one of the things like I said at the beginning of the show, that I really appreciate you for, and for this book, is and I think there's many more like you in your profession, but most people have trouble. I think I had an experience when I was a teenager where I encountered something I called a shadow entity. And it tormented me and 2 other friends for months. And I was physically assaulted, lifted up off my bed at one point, like levitated. I don't call it, people who say it's demons, I don't know. I still question this. There's some alien connections. It's a long story I'm not going to get into. But at one point, my mom found me completely mentally broke down from this. And I felt like I couldn't even tell her. And I'm really, really close to my mom. I love my mom. And I think she would have totally listened to me. But I still felt like she's going to think I'm crazy and really losing my mind. I'm going to scare her. I'm going to really scare her and make her worry more if I tell her what I'm experiencing. But she's like, you need to get help. You need to talk to somebody. And for her, I had a girlfriend that broke my heart at that time. So she's seeing it as a broken heart girlfriend thing. It was making me suicidal. But it was so much more going on I couldn't tell her about because I was being accosted every night by this being that would telepathically get in my head, rip my soul out of my body and take me places and show me things I would later verify were real things happening, like my girlfriend cheating on me, like showed me it. And she told me when I said, listen, I know you cheated on me with this guy. I saw it. She goes, how did you see it? And I described the scene where it happened. She goes, that was where we first kissed. That did happen. It's like, who told you?
It's funny. I remember I used to have a motorcycle, and I was riding my motorcycle on this day, and I had a girlfriend, and she had this older guy that had an interest in her. And around 6 o'clock at night, I'm driving, and I go, she's with Michael. Michael's somehow connected to her at this moment. And so the next day I called her and I said, so were you with Michael around 6 o'clock last night? Said, did you read my journal? What are you doing?
You were in
and I was like, no, I didn't. I just had this thought that you were with him, and that's all I'm asking. And she said, yes, I was.
Yeah, that's a similar experience.
Like it's crazy knowing.
Yeah, well, for me, it was this thing showing
me. But I
me
wouldn't have known if she didn't validate me.
Right, exactly. So I had to know because this thing was messing with me so bad, showing me things like my band. So when she confirmed that, I knew the other stuff it was showing me was probably true. Like my band was behind my back talking about getting rid of me at the time. This is all high school drama bullcrap. That now you look back, I was so distraught about all these things. Band kicking me out, girlfriend breaking up with me, as end of the world teenager ideas, like so silly to me now. But I was at my wit's end. This thing was showing me all the things happening behind my back and laughing at me. It knew all my insecurities, things I still to this day will never talk about. It knew everything, whatever. But I was mentally broke down by the same. My mom's like, you need to go seek help. And I went to see a psychologist. Wow, what a way I had to sit there and like, how do I talk to this guy about what's going on without him thinking I am completely out of my mind? So I found ways that I brought it up with him, saying that I have had these dreams, even though to me they weren't dreams. There was times I was fully awake and I'm seeing this thing. And he was really kind and he listened. And I think he tried to do his best to help me understand what was going on. But in the end, I never truly opened up to him because I didn't want him to think I was completely whack job. What ended this for me was a spiritual moment.
That's one of those 12 points that people think that people are going to think they're crazy.
Yep. That's why I do this show, is to give people a forum, a place where everybody in the chat room is very supportive. I have a great chat room for and people to call in. I wanted phone lines for people to open up, talk about. There's no judgment here. Everybody's experience is valid, and to listen. And that's why I really appreciate you in this book, because we need more. I think psychology really needs to open its mind to the human experience, that people are experiencing things that go beyond what their ideas of science is. And
there are reality. A few people that have done it, but there's not that many.
Yeah. Well, Carl Jung,
Carl Jung was big.
Huge fan, because he took these deep thoughts and recognized some of these things a lot. Synchronicity being one. There's a number of cases of things he reported in his life that you could tell he had a deep interest in the supernatural.
Yeah,
and openness to exploring it.
The synchronicity one was he had a picture in his office, and the picture fell down off his bookcase and cracked, and he wrote down that moment. That's when that guy died.
Yep.
and then he called it an asynchronistic.
There was another one
moment.
where he would. What was it? He was talking to a client, something, and like, I think it might have involved a bird or something happened. I can't remember what it was, but he recognized this, a premier person in psychology recognized these experiences as something legitimate, not to just write them off, and that's why I've always been a huge fan.
Yeah, I had an experience like that. I think it's in my book, where I had a sparrow fly at the window and never had done that before. And I had said earlier to a woman, she said, "Can you tell me about like what animals' messages can be?" And I said, "Well, don't take the black cat next door or a sparrow." And then I said, I was just corrected. The sparrow just pointed out to me that,
like, hey, yes,
there can be alternatives to that, because the
Birds,
sparrow
oh, yeah.
had never flown in the window like that before or since. So
No,
I said,
go ahead.
I said that, this is an exception. So here's a bird doing something unusual that it normally doesn't do. And right when you brought this subject up, so that means something.
Yep. No, I agree. We've talked about it on this show. We've had it in the Worldwide Web of Weird. There's a famous one where at a grave site where this bird totally interacts with these two ladies, like it's I think their mother, they believe it is. There's a number of things we've covered with birds. There was the child spirit and the bird. I had the experience a couple times with my wife's grandmother, because they had this joke about cardinals being red jays. She'd call them the red jays, and that was their bird together. And the morning that we got the phone call that she had passed, me and my wife walked right out the window because we knew what we were going to see, and there was a red cardinal, red jay, sitting there.
Right.
And then a few years later, or a year later or so, I was on a field trip with my son who has sensory disorder, and we were in Chicago waiting at the South Shore, Randolph Street, to leave. And it was so much noise and crazy. It was way too much for him. That's why I was a chaperone on this, because I was worried about him. And I took him over to this like very hot enclosed glass windowed area to get him away from the noise. It was so hot in there. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to get him to calm down. He's freaking out. Too much noise, too much going on. And this cardinal, I look out someone told me to look out down on the tracks. There's this cardinal fighting a praying mantis, and my son loves a good fight, monster fight in a sense. And I'm like, I go, look at that. There's a cardinal fighting this praying mantis on the railroad tracks. Totally took my son's attention. He was like focused on it. It was like I videotaped it, but I swear to God, I said, thank you, Mimi, because I knew it was her, my wife's grandmother. Like, I needed something to get his focus on, to take his mind away from all the sensory stuff happened, and it worked perfect. So I'm a big believer that, especially birds, there's some connection. Their spirit can reach out using animals to send messages to people.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most easy. Go ahead.
One of the people I interviewed went down to Florida for medical stuff. And while she was down there, she went out into the beach. She went out into the ocean, and she found herself over by a pole, and she was singing and imagining that she was calling the dolphins to the pole. And she did that for a while, and they never showed up. And so she walked in, and she was walking back onto the beach, and a bunch of people stood up, and they were looking, and she said, "What?" And they said, "Dolphins over by that pole."
She just didn't wait long enough.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of the connection between animals and us, and we're all connected. We're all part of some one source. That, like I said, my dog Bella, I knew she could read my mind. She lost her hearing as she got older, and so she wouldn't hear people calling her like my wife and that. But I could get her with my mind. I swear to God, I could get her to come to me by thinking Bella in my mind really loud, and she would, I swear to God, would turn and look at me like, what? I mean, she was deaf, so she couldn't hear anything. Yeah, it was the way. But she, I had her since she was a tiny puppy, and like, I don't know, that was my first real dog of my own, and we really, had a connection. And I even dreamed of her. What do you get? Here's another one. We're going to go to commercial break here in a little bit. We'll get in maybe when we come back and open the phone lines into the 12 key findings. We'll get into that. But I'm interested in these experiences that you've talked to these people. You interviewed people on this. People that have premonition dreams or premonitions in waking. I've had both. I mean, my dog. A year before she died, I dreamt of her passing. And outside the vet's clinic, outside with my kids there and all this stuff. And at the time, I thought, well, why would they put my dog down outside? I didn't know. I was like, why would they do that? Why? I would never bring my kids there. Well, then COVID happened a year later. And there we are outside putting the dog down, putting Bella down, sun setting just like the dream. My son put a flower next to her head just like the dream. Everything exactly as I dreamt it happened there. You know, those kind of things that people, you have that experience. If you have a premonition or you have a dream that's that vivid and predicts something, it can blow your mind about what is a predestination? Is everything planned? You know, I've had these since I was a little kid, so it wasn't my first rodeo with that. But what's your thoughts on people having premonitions?
I think some people do have genuine premonitions, and those premonitions are just part of what I was saying earlier about how when you have an internal experience, either seeing it or thinking it, and then it happens in the real world.
Do you believe in predestination? I mean, because we've had this discussion on the show. I'm not a believer in predestination, no matter how many times I've actually seen these things future-wise.
I think some things are predestined, but I don't think all things are.
Right. The future is always in motion, as Yoda would say in Star Wars, and that's what I believe. Because I've actually had an experience where I had a premonition of something and changed it because of the premonition. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Again, don't get me started to make your brain.
Well, that's the other thing. Can you change something? You know, some things can be changed, some things can't.
Right. This was one thing I changed, and luckily did, or I wouldn't be married to my wife for 20 years. It was one of those things I'm talking about on the show. But it would prove to me that
I remember reading a story in a psychic journal, and it was about how this woman in England had a vision of, during the Olympics, of an invasion from the Middle East on Israel, and she called Golden my ear and told her. And literally, when they got the information, the United States and Israel planted themselves in the very spot and caught them.
I've heard that story.
Yeah,
I've heard that. You know, I mean, our government's been proven that they, not besides remote viewing, that we have looked into the psychic phenomenon. We have employed psychics beyond the ability of remote viewing that have, that they would tell them that something's going to happen. And then remote view the future. And I mean, I think the future is always in motion. Like I said, you steal it from Yoda, that we can change it. But like you said, there are things that maybe are predestined or certain things that have to happen. I don't know. But I've always been fascinated with consciousness and time, because
I remember
I've had this since I was a kid.
the guys that were on that plane, those planes that shot down the Twin Towers and went after another place down farther, and there was actually a guy that got in an argument with them at the airport, but nothing happened. Yeah. Nobody came. Police didn't come. Nothing happened. They just went on their way.
Yeah, it could have been stopped, but it wasn't. Was it predestined? This had to happen, which is, a horrible thought to have when 3,000 people die,
Right.
Is that something? But you wonder, That's why I've always been I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and I love time travel and stuff.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that either. It's just...
Right, because my brain boggles at it. My wife says, you make my brain hurt when you talk about these things. Because, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? How do you change things? Why would you see the future? I believe in parallel possibilities. Is that there's parallel timelines, multiverse. Maybe that's what's involved. But our consciousness is interacting with it. We get these.
Well, I think we have a ways to go to get our consciousness where it needs to be.
Oh, that I can definitely agree on. What's your opinion on that, societally-wise? Doing a show like this, I'm a huge Art Bell fan. I listened to him for years. He had a huge 16 million night audience back in the 90s. I mean, lots of people interested now. now you're getting more people with more paranormal shows. I mean, we've had the ghost hunting shows now for 20 years. We've UFOs, all this stuff's coming open. There seems to be more people interested, more people aware, openness. But at the same time, you have people that are completely caught up in Instagram, social media, politics, and other stupid crap in society. But do you feel like people are awakening more to this? That supernatural awareness is happening more to society?
It's becoming more open, I think. It's more acceptable than it has ever been, but it's not accepted by everybody.
Right. Like I pointed out, you got Tucker Carlson talking about supernatural entities and aliens and stuff. What do you think we can get here?
Right.
Yeah. You're seeing it. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing more people talk about it. Last week I had talking about Whoopi Goldberg, or a couple weeks ago, that she's like, I know they're here. Like there's people that have come out that are famous that have had alien contactee experiences. There's people. One of my favorite shows is Celebrity Ghost Stories. God, I love that show because, not just because they're celebrities. I just like hearing people's personal experiences. It doesn't matter that they're celebrities, but they did such a good job of letting these big celebrities tell these experiences that are completely amazing experiences these people have had. It's insightful. We all got to share these experiences, in my opinion, to get an idea what is real reality. What is
so the two things that I use to kind of look at experiences as genuine and something I wanted to investigate was, one, the experience of having something internally happen and then it externally happens. And then the other one was something I learned through school, which was the transformation that takes place. The person changes. As a result of these experiences, they become more open, they become more flexible, they become more accepting of experiences that they wouldn't have been accepting of before.
It's totally true. I've seen it in my own personal life. I know Jamie has, and my shadow person experience completely changed me. It set me down a course to eventually do this show because I felt like people needed a place to do. But before I had that experience, I was a snotty kid that focused too much stuff on dark things, and I was always negative. And I still can be that way. I'm a worrywart, but it changed me psychologically. It changed me. It completely changed me. I just I cut my hair.
I remember being 18 and having a flyer come from a local psychic place, and I said, "What kind of crap is this?" But yet I opened up to all that stuff.
Yeah.
As time went on, I had experiences that opened me up.
And you find that in this field and all that when you do talk to people that are like, "Oh, it's all hogwash," or "None of that's true." Most times because they haven't had an experience. And I can get that. I could get if I tell you my shadow person experience, I've written it out. You would think I'm crazy if you've never experienced that. And I had that with one of my wife's family friends. Said, "Oh, you're a liar." When I told him this experience, you're a liar. I'm like, wow, that's insulting. Thanks.
That's because it's a fear.
It's a fear reaction. Yeah. But he hasn't experienced anything either.
Right. He has nothing to judge it by.
Exactly. I think people are able, when they've had these experience, just any experience along these lines, they're a little more sympathetic to listen or be open to it. So maybe, part of that awakening happening now that we see with people is that more people are having these experiences than they did before, or more people are willing to share it. But we have plenty of TV shows now expanding that. People are getting more open to it. It's getting more stuff. I still think we have a long way to go, though.
Yeah, there are stories though throughout time. I remember a story on TV that was this mother, her daughter and husband went to the movies, and the son went to go to the movies after on his bike to meet them. And she, in her mind, saw her son getting hit by a car and called the place. And the guy said, "My God, it's happening right now."
Oh, my God. That's horrible.
But he didn't die or anything.
Oh,
but
thank God.
He just
That's my worst, yeah. But you hear these stories, especially.
But it was the timing that she saw it before it happened.
Yep.
And then called, and it was happening right then.
Yep. Verifiable. I mean, I like these stories of experience. Like I said, I've experienced all my life. These kind of things. Like I was a little kid, and my mom had this boyfriend, and I heard he always would be like, "You want to go with a ride with me?" He'd take her car because he was a broke loser, and he'd always be like, "You want to go on a ride with me, kiddo?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go. I want to go on a ride." You know, I was like 5 years old. He asked me to go on a ride with him, and this voice, female voice, came in my head. Same one, not long before that, where I fell out of a car, and she told me not to sit up, and this car went right over me. The same female voice came into my head and said, "Don't go, don't go." And I had realized, I was 5 years old, that I just knew she was, I don't know if she was, this voice was sending me images that he was going to get in a car accident. I started crying and say, "Don't go, don't go," and threw a fit. I didn't want to go with him. I'm like, "Don't go." And then just like 15 minutes later after he left, his brother comes running down bleeding because his brother was with him. Car, I think his brother was with him. My mom would have to tell the story, but the car flipped over or whatever. He totally wrecked her car. I could have been completely injured or killed in that accident. But I knew, like, I remember that being really upset, this female voice telling me, "Don't go," and seeing him in a car wreck. To me, all these things have been, one of the things I described is when I was really little, me and my cousin Phil both saw a green floating head go flying through the room. And I never forgot it. And once you see a green floating head, pretty much everything adults are telling you, because I was 4 or 5, that this is reality and none of those things are real, they're full of crap. That's what I realized right at a young age. So I've always been open to it. I've always been open to it because if people have these kinds of experiences like I have, reality is so much more than what you're being told in school and by your mentors and family.
Yeah, at the same time, it's like if somebody's in my office and they tell me that they see their grandfather and he's on fire in their mind and he's already passed, I am not sure if that's real or that's their experience. They're seeing it. I'm not saying they're not seeing it, but what does it mean? Right.
I mean, does it mean their grandfather's burning in hell, or is it something their subconscious is trying to tell them that has nothing to do with that?
Right.
It's some kind of symbolic meaning.
Right. That's the point.
Well, that's why it's really important to get people to just talk and introspect on, if you feel this way, let's explore that. What does this mean to you? And really get into what that conscious experience that somebody's happened. Like I said, I do it as an investigator with people. I try to really let them tell their story, but at the same time, I'm trying to explore what they're saying. It's a big part of getting it out of them. I do that on this show. People say I interject, and I do with my own experiences, but I try not to interject on what they're having so much as try to get people that are calling in with their experiences and all that to tell me a little more. Like, let's dig deep in what you actually saw or felt. Of course, a lot of times I have a call with somebody on this show. I don't have a lot of time to explore it, like you do in a session with somebody. We're going to be going to commercial break, and when we come back, when I go over these 12 key findings when we come back after that. But before we go to commercial break, what do you think is one of the most interesting supernatural experiences you've shared in this book?
Well, they all are. I think they all are. But one of the ones that was the second point I made was a woman that she was in her 20s, and she partially was depressed and wanted to die and wanted to take her children with her. She was going to the laundromat, and she asked her husband to go with her, and he wouldn't go with her. And so she went to the laundromat, and then she saw there was a guy in there. And when she saw there was a guy in there, she said, "Oh, that's good. There'll be somebody in there. I'll be safe." And she walked in, and he assaulted her, knocked her out cold, and raped her. And she went to the light, and she met somebody that she knew at the time, but she couldn't recall when she was telling me the story, which was years later. And she went, this guy at the light said that she could come if she wanted, but she would have to live her life over. But her children couldn't come because they already had lives they were living, and they couldn't come. So as a result of that, she didn't want to die anymore. She wanted to live her life, and she wanted to be a part of her kids' lives. And that was the way she was for years. And when she when she told me the story, that's what she told me. And that was the key. One of the keys that I was thinking was really important, the transformation that takes place as a result of an experience.
We've had a number of guests on near-death experiences, and I mean, I think all of them are transformative, but that one's incredible, especially for somebody who was suicidal. And I've heard these kind of stories before, but giving them that choice, and even the aspect that you said she would have to come back again, the aspect of reincarnation.
Yeah, the person told her she could go, but she would have to come back and relive her whole life again, and she couldn't take her kids. And because of those two reasons, she didn't want to do it over.
Yeah. I wouldn't care about the comeback. Well, I don't, it'd be great not to have to come back again. Maybe it would be great to come back again, but my reason would be I can't, I want to see my kids, I want to be a part of their lives,
Right.
That's a big one. And we some near-death experiences, a lot of times it seems like they're given a choice like that, and that's transformative to choose to live. And sometimes they're told they don't have a choice. You have stuff to do. You have to go back. They're not given a choice.
Right.
It's like that's that little bit of that predestination. I find the near-death experience so fascinating because, one, I mean, the big question, is there a life after death? Is there, are we more than just this, a short lifespan, it seems? There's something more. I think that's the big question. And near-death
there's only so much you can do in 100 years.
Right. Well, we're going to go to commercial break, Dr. Woodard, and then we're going to open up the phone lines and let people call in, all right, and take some questions. And I want to get into these 12 key steps as well. Okay. And there's many more supernatural experiences to talk about, too, tonight that are in your book. And I got some questions, some stuff I'm going through. Maybe you have some insights on I could get into tonight, too. But we're going to go to commercial break. When we come back, we'll take your phone calls. Lines will be open. Just wait till after you come back from the commercial break. Lines will be open. Call in the show. Join with our guest, Dr. Fredrick Woodard, author of Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, Connecting with Your Interactive Universe. He's also the author of Perceptual Hypnosis, a spiritual journey towards expanding awareness. Love to get into that, too, about hypnosis and that. I'd love to talk more about that. But we're going to go to commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, Follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine, and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is "42. Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Dr. Fredrick Woodard. He is the author of Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, Connecting with Your Interactive Universe. He's also a clinical psychologist and a certified hypnotherapist. We're getting into all these supernatural experiences tonight, and I'd love to hear yours. And I say it all the time. If you called in before and shared that supernatural experience before, don't be afraid to call in again and share it. I don't mind. And I like hearing our guest's perspective on your experiences, just like I like hearing them on my own experiences. I've been told I shouldn't be interjecting with my experiences, but I don't care. It's my show. Whatever. You can interject too. Come in. Join us. Tell us about what supernatural experience you've had. Paranormal, supernatural, whatever it is. I'd like to get our guest's opinion on it and explore it a little bit. Of course, we only have a little bit of time for you to do that. But call in and join the conversation. Phone lines are now open. Call in, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you for staying with us tonight. So in the book, you have the 12 finding common threads of these experiences. If you want to, I don't know if you want to list the 12, get into it. What is that about?
Well, those are things that are common in the cases that I explored. So a couple of the first few would be that it can happen anywhere. And so it's not that this happens in certain places. It can happen anywhere. It can happen to anybody. The experiences, we already talked about this, but the experiences are often validated by external information So some details about the experience is connected to events in the experiencer's life or have a particular meaning for them. That is true oftentimes too.
Yeah. One of the things I'd always ask people, in their experiences, to dwell deeper, is sometimes they'll say something like, or they'll describe something, like you said about the guy who said his grandfather is burning on fire. You're like, I'd separate that. So what does your grandfather mean to you? Like, what was your relationship? Okay, what does fire mean to you? Like, tell me the first things come to mind when you talk about fire. What are the connections? I don't know how much, as a psychologist, what your thoughts are on people's subconscious and how it comes through in these experiences sometimes.
Right. Well, that I'm sticking to the cases that I have in the book.
But what I'm saying, it's just like the things that people are experiencing. You're trying to delve in with the things that what is that personal meaning? People don't Some people, I think, I always tell people, trust your gut. What does your gut tell you this experience meant? Or what that means to you. Trust what your gut tells you.
Well, somebody that's aware that has great power, like yourself, but somebody that's not aware, they could put other meanings on it that aren't really even real.
True. Very true. So in a way, are you trying to help people to discover the true meaning behind what they experienced?
Yes, but helping them do that.
Yeah,
so they do it.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like you said, you don't want to interject on that experience either, but you want to explore it. So these 12 key findings, are common threads. One of the things I always say on the show about why I want people to call in, share their experiences, and talk about it, is that we have to compare our experiences in a sense and look for those commonalities is a big one.
Right, that's true.
What I find interesting is that sometimes you have commonalities between what people classify as two different kinds of paranormal experiences. One being, we've talked about extensively on the show, is a lot of the stuff that happens with abductions. People believe they're being abducted by aliens, and some of the common threads between people who feel they're being demonically influenced or possessed or live in a haunted house. That there's things that happen that are very similar. There's even things with near-death experiences I can say that are very commonly similar to somebody's abduction experience.
That's true, and that's one of the things people do is they seek out other people that have had similar experiences.
But I've talked to abductees that said that they've had these shadow beings in their home and psychokinetic activity, like what you would just classify as they live in a haunted house, but they're having alien abductions happen. There's these commonalities in a shared experience. I mean, if you get into the Bigfoot and cryptoid thing, there's people see UFOs sometimes connected with Bigfoot. I call the show Paranormal Soup because I believe all these things in some way have a commonality or connection, maybe a unified field theory for the paranormal or supernatural.
Yeah, that's true. That I think that there's a big connection that you can't really make in just one lifetime.
I'm trying though. Well, maybe I have multiple lifetimes. See, one of the things we haven't gotten into tonight is past lives so much. I'm dealing with my 8-year-old son Liam. Ever since he first could talk, he had mentioned at a very young age seeing bodies on a hill. And I try to explore it, but I don't push him. I don't want to push him. I just let him open up when he's ready. And just recently, like I said, he locked a kid in a chokehold. I was having a long dad talk with him, and he was really upset and stuff. And then he started saying how screwed up he is because he sees these bodies still. He always sees these bodies on this hill. And I asked him, I said, okay, just tell me more. What you see the bodies? What comes to your mind when you see these bodies? And that's when he said, I hear this name. I don't know if it's my name or not, but Koma or Komar. That's what he said. And I'm a little history buff, and I'm like, there's a battle in World War II, Colmar. It's not, I think, and I had to research it because I'm not that big of a history buff to remember all of it off the top of my head. But I was right. There is Colmar Pocket in France, and it was a lot of hand-to-hand combat and bloody. But my son, he's been fascinated with World War II, soldiers, anything army camouflage since he could barely talk. He put his hands on, like he wants to wear it, he wants to do it, but he's afraid he's going to die as a soldier again. Like, we're very open in this household. I've listened to my children. We're not, I mean, we're open to all these experiences, and we've talked to our kids about reincarnation. That I personally have had my experiences and believe in it. So we're open, unlike, I mean, I don't think everybody else's household's like ours, So these kids have a little different experience. So he understands reincarnation to some sense, and we've tried to help him understand it, and I've tried not to push it. My question is, and I know this might not be your field of expertise or anything like that, but I'm like, what's my next steps? I asked him, do you want to see some pictures from that time? If he said no, okay, cool, we're done. But he said yes, so I let him see some pictures. He got really quiet and focused in on it. And I a little worried, like, do you explore it with them? Let them explore it? Or is it best to let them just grow out of it? Let it go?
It's like I had a case of a girl that said she saw her grandmother and talked to her grandmother, and her mother got pictures of both grandmothers. She said, "That's not grandma." And then about 2 months later, they went to the mother's uncle's house, and there was a picture of great grandma, and she said, "That's grandma."
Yep.
So by giving information, you might be altering information.
Right. That's my worry. Right. That's why, I want to know, what does he want to explore with it? Does it help him to explore it? Does it, I don't know. But I've always been fascinated by this topic. I never knew I was going to get some kind of name or detail like that from him. But he kind of really opened up to me. But, I mean, since he was little, I mean, I've talked about it endlessly on this show. It's been a weird experience with him because he told my wife when he was 3 years old that I chose you. I chose you and Daddy. And what's weird about that is years before he was born, the week I was getting ready to move out of my parents to move in with my wife, we were getting married, I saw this middle of the day translucent boy, looked like he's 9 or 10, walk through my living room up to me, and I had this warm, loving feeling. I could see him. I wasn't scared. My parents' house isn't haunted, but I could see him. I could feel him. This is a waking experience, and I just knew I knew him, and it was just a warm, loving feeling, and he just faded away, and he smiled at me. The moment he was born, when they pulled him and put him up to my wife's head, he smiled, and I knew right then. Like I always tell people, trust your gut on these experiences. I knew right then when I saw him, that was the boy I saw. And as he's got now 8 years old, I know for sure that is the boy I saw. So when he told my wife, I chose you, I'm like, obviously he did, because he showed himself to me before he was ever even born. There's so much more to this reality and these experiences, and I think it's important that people in your field and more start to take a deeper look and understanding of these experiences, because look, it's affecting him as an 8-year-old boy.
An openness to them.
Because he sees a therapist, about his behavior, his just moments of just pure frustration and anger. It's like, I mean, this kid explodes, and I don't know if that's past life related. Is that something you should explore? Literally, this kid got the cops called on me when he was 2 years old for the rage of screaming fit that he threw. I mean, yeah, every parent's like, yeah, my kid's done that, but I'm telling you, the rage came from nowhere. This kid can just go from peaceful, happy to just, I want to just destroy everything in front of me. I'm going to scream my head off. Like something that was wrong. I couldn't get out of him. We've dealt with this for so long. It's just like, I want to make the right choices as a parent, and for him. I want him to, I don't know. I want him not to be, I feel a lot of people don't realize that they've lived before, and it does affect who they are now. And how that's affecting him now, I'm a bit concerned.
I had
everyday experience.
I had a case where this person came to me and told me that they were studying with this woman, and they looked at the woman, and her face changed to 8 different faces, and the first thought in their mind was, "My God, I know them." And then the next thought was, "Oh, I must be overtired. I must be exhausted." And that person didn't even know about past lives at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories of hypnotherapists that are not trying to do past life regression with a client, and a past life comes through. And some of them got turned into believers because of this. Have you heard of those kind of cases?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, seems to come out. What have you have a book called Clinical or what is it? Perceptual Hypnosis. What is perceptual hypnosis?
It's a certain way of looking at hypnosis, and I believe that it's differentiation, not dissociation. It's like what you choose to focus on that determines what's going on in your reality.
I mean, that's
one aspect of it.
But you use hypnosis to change people's perception of the reality, in a sense?
It's to help them open up, just to, again, help people open up. I have an exercise in the back of that book that's a CD, a DVD, and it's a 50-minute exercise that has many positive things on it.
I've only been hypnotized once by a returning guest we've had, Chris Lee, who does past life regressions. And the way he does it, he tells his clients, basically, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. I'm not here to judge if this regression was, if you really lived that past life or not. But what he does is, like, for me, he's like, what ailments or pain are you having? I'm like, I have this neck issue that started years ago that's never gone away, and I have these throbbing in my fingers and joints. Of course, I have arthritis, whatever. I'm young, but might have psoriatic arthritis. And he goes, we're going to explore that with your past lives, in a sense. That's what he takes you back to. Where's the source of that pain in your past life, right? And so I had 2 different images or lives come through. It just seems like pictures happen in your mind, you see, but it's not, it's not like you're physically feeling it or anything like that. So it's like he has a lot of clients say, well, that could have just been my imagination making it up. I saw one. I was a woman in some kind of medieval like chamber, left to die there for witchcraft, basically. And I hung myself with a chain. Could I made that up? Yes. And the other one with my fingers in that instance is that they smashed my hands. Could I made any of that up? Yeah, I don't know. But afterwards, that throbbing, I've not had that problem in my fingers. Now I still have the neck problem. It did feel, my neck popped during it. That was weird.
You know, one of the interesting things about it is in my hypnosis book, I have a diagram, and on the outside is all the stuff that interferes with your ability to get to the truth. And as you move farther in, it gets easier and easier.
Well, he mainly does this, like I said, to eliminate people's chronic illness problems or pains or weird things that they've had that maybe could be connected to past lives. And he always says to his clients is like, well, if it worked, what does it matter if that was real or not what you saw? Right. That's what he tells people. And I like I said, it kind of worked for me. And it makes you wonder, was that a past life I saw in that regression? I don't know. It's something I always want to explore more.
Yeah, if it works, that's true. It doesn't matter whether it was real or not. If it works, if it helps you, but if it doesn't help you, then it's not the right thing. Or
I was already a believer in past lives because I had 2 very vivid dreams that I feel like showed me 2 different past lives that in their sense, both of those dreams were very transformative in a sense for myself, understanding myself, why I'm wired the way I am. So I was already a believer, but those dreams were so like real and physical. Like I felt myself getting shot in the chest, that kind of deal, like waking up going, you know, like compared to like Chris doing this guide, what I, you know, hypnosis is, you know, where I'm kind of seeing images in my mind, you know, that was like going from 3D to like a 2D screen, you know, like I wish people could experience the past life experiences I had in those vivid dreams. It'd change your mind about so much about who you are. The vivid dreams I had were just like living it. I was a different person, you know, compared to the hypnosis where it's like, is this imagined or is this real? You know, I'm saying like, I don't feel like those dreams were imagined because they were just.
Well, that's like
physical.
the person that told me they saw the woman and the 8 faces, and the first thought was, I know them.
Yeah.
And then the next thought was a more logical, rational explanation that kind of watered it down.
Like, well, that's how it goes for my see, I've had weird dreams about what some people say, well, that sounds like alien abduction, you know, things like that. I wrote off as dreams for years. Then I had Terry Lovelace on here. He wrote a book about his experiences, Incident at Devil's Den. And I read that book, and it opened my mind to these dreams I've had that I wrote off. I don't know why. I've explored all these other paranormal things, but I would write off the alien dreams as just dreams, you know, my sci-fi brain. But when I started comparing what I've had to other abductees now that I've had on this show, like Terry, it's made me reanalyze some of these experiences I've had that maybe weren't just dreams. I don't know. That's why I think it's so important for people to compare notes. They might not realize something that's been happening to them.
Right. I think you're more aware, too. Some people that aren't will have fantasy stuff first and then go into truth.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I wrote it off, and I find it like I was wired in some sense not to look at these experiences and always write them off. I felt like, why would I write these things off? And I did for a long time. And I felt like I was just wired to, like, just, no, it's, you know, that's just a dream. That didn't happen. Even though I'm totally a believer in aliens. I saw a huge UFO once with 4 other people. Like, and I read Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods when I was a kid. I'm like a believer in aliens. Like, why would I look away from these things? But I did.
I read that book too.
Oh, yeah. Big top fan. Somebody, dream guest I'd love to get is Eric von Daniken. Anyways, getting up there in years, but I'd love to talk to that guy. That book, you know, I mean, I like I said, my 2 past lives definitely explain why I am wired the way I am, but I always become up, never trusting the government, never trusting organized religion, and I never trust what the authorities or the scientists or the archaeologists tell me is history or science or whatever. I feel like there's always something more to the picture. Okay, I've always been that way. I'm wired.
Well, you know, one of the
question.
things I always made me laugh was all the psychologists and people that like do transpersonal psychology or whatever, and they have all these steps you got to stop at, you know, all these people you got to check in with, and when you're having a real experience, you don't check in with anybody.
No,
you just go right to the experience, right to the place where you need to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I think there's some people that are searching for experiences too. You know, I see it doing this field. There's people that are.
Well, that's why I have my exercises at the end of each chapter that help. They're based on things that came from that chapter, the experiences within that chapter.
Well, what I've seen happen over the years in this field of New Age and kind of like supernatural curiosity or spiritual curiosity is people getting into ayahuasca, DMT. When I was young, I read Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan and several of the other books that he wrote. And I remember in that, you know, Don Juan's out in the desert doing peyote in the middle of the night, right? With Carl Castaneda, right? And Don Juan's telling him to do this, and in that first book, you know, I mean, there is this like these concoctions he takes that are hallucinogenic that open his mind up. But later on, the books, and Carl Castaneda, he's not doing the drugs. He's not doing hallucinogens. He's having this spiritual journey. It's like he had to do the peyote out in the desert to open his mind to the possibility of it. And you hear about people doing DMT and having these encounters with like supernatural beings, or people putting on even like electronic devices like the so-called God helmet that can, I think uses EMF and that to like put the brain in an altered state, and they have these supernatural beings and experiences. What's your thoughts on people using like hallucinogenic? My one I will stipulate: if you are going to do that, you should do it in some kind of spiritual setting. Just don't go take some ayahuasca or some peyote and have.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with that.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't have.
But it seems like, you heard me. I played in my commercial break when I was a kid. One of my favorite movies was Altered States. I don't know how I shouldn't watch that as a kid. It's not a kid's movie. And I've showed it to other people. Like, you like this movie? I'm like, yes. I don't know. It's about exploring the consciousness.
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah. He goes into an isolation chamber and does ayahuasca or whatever it was they're doing in there, and has like a very crazy experience, right? I've always the mind and consciousness have always fascinated me, and I think for some people they're doing this DMT, they're doing the God helmet, or they're doing ayahuasca. Because they're searching for some kind of spiritual experience. And this opens up their mind to it. I'm not recommending it to people. I'm not. I don't think you should have to do that to open your mind up to this stuff. But I do see people doing this more and more. Like they're going towards this, and like I said, if you're going to do it under some kind of spiritual setting. Have a guide.
So most of the spiritual people that I met through the years that were not religious or not psychology scientists, but were just spiritual people, they would say you can do it naturally. You don't need anything else.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm saying too. I just see it as in this new age, and in America, I always make fun of America. We want a quick pill. We want a quick fix. We want a quick, that's the attraction to it, I think, to some people.
I have no experience with it, so I'm not saying it's not legit. Right. It's just I can't say because I haven't been exposed to it.
What I do find interesting is, especially with things like the God helmet and ayahuasca, is that people do have, when they have these experiences, yes, it's drug induced, they're hallucinating, yes. But they're communicating with things and having these experiences that are very similar to what abductees are having, or people are under spiritual attack sometimes, or people having spiritual experiences, induced. And skeptics will say, see, the people are just, they're having this because they're on the drug or whatever. But there is something in the mind, barriers we put up and things that either drugs or life-threatening situations or things that happen, near-death experiences that open up the mind to this realm. Just guess what I'm trying to get at. There can be besides near death, I mean, there's experiences in our lives that can help open us up to this that we didn't plan for. Or there's experiences you can have because you're like, I'm going to take this drug ayahuasca. But either way, there's this point where we open up our mind to this other realm. And now you're on that trip, the supernatural awareness that you write about. What do you think once somebody is on that path, the supernatural awareness, how does it change their lives, like living their life?
They're more open, they're more flexible, and they're more open to new experiences.
Do you think it's psychologically stabilizing, or can it, for some people's experiences, be psychologically unstabilizing, like it can be traumatic?
Well, at first it could be, but I think that when it's positive, it really works out well.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, like I said, I've had positive and negative experience. The shadow person was a very negative experience, but the way it ended for me was it was a positive thing. It was a very positive thing. It definitely changed me.
I haven't had any negative experiences either, really. I've had a few interviews with people that have had negative experiences, like being attacked or something, but not very often.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even as a paranormal investigator, I'll get people's haunted house residential, and most of the time they're really scared, but what's happening is pretty benign in the all sum of how things happen to people, that, you know, they're hearing a little bit of voices or steps, feeling like being watched, you know, the typical stuff, but it scares the hell out of them. But that's generally the kind of stuff I run across. It's rare to run across somebody, but I do believe in it because of my own experiences and people we've had on the show that are running across something that is truly negative or psychological. I mean, I've had people that have lived and gone through it like I have, and we call it paranormal PTSD. Some people have actual issues after living in a home that was severely haunted or have been attacked by a negative entity. Or even people that have been going through alien abduction, you know, that they have, negative experiences afterwards, psychological trauma, I guess you could say, from the experience. So some of these things are transformative. Some of these things can psychologically mess you up a little bit, is what I'm trying to say. You know, some people have a transformative, a positive spiritual experience, but some of these things can be very negative too. Right. You know, that people are experiencing. And I think it's important in that aspect for people that are having negative experience really to have some kind of person to talk to. Like I said, I tried to go to a psychologist and I found it really hard to talk about my situation. He did help, but it really couldn't open up to him.
Yeah, that happens.
Now, you also talk, when we were talking about, like, you have in your book, you talk about invisible beings. You know,
that could be anything. That could be people.
Right.
That could be former relatives and
but
friends.
But beyond that, what do you have on the idea of angels and demons and
there's a case that's angels and demons.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that case?
Well, this girl, when she was living with her aunt, I believe, I can't be sure, I think it was her aunt, and she had an image of her cousin being attacked and two angels holding a demon who was trying to get at her cousin. And she woke up her aunt and told her the story, and the aunt started praying. And then the cousin called and verified the story.
Yeah. Like that they were experiencing a supernatural attack at that time?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, see, that to me, I mean, obviously people have been talking about their supernatural experiences for thousands of years and our different religions than the Bible and the Quran, and people have had experiences they've documented. And people look at it now as just fairy tales or religious dogma or all that stuff, but obviously people have been experiencing something beyond what people normally think is reality for thousands of years. And there is something interacting with us, be it interdimensional beings, angels, demons, aliens. But people have this experience of interacting with something that is not human in some way or form. And that will change a person. Once they have accepted that, that will change a person, their perception of reality forever.
Yeah.
I mean, some people become super religious if it is angels and demons they're seeing, or sometimes they are already super religious and they see them as angels and demons, but are they? Because that's their perception, you know.
I think people see what they need to see.
True. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess that would be a perspective on it. You know, people are going to see what's going to give them the right message at that time, or
because whatever God is or goddesses, whatever they are, whatever it is, it could be something that appears to people whatever way it needs to.
Yeah.
So it appears to one person as this, appears to another person as this, to do whatever needs to be done to protect that person or help that person.
I mean, it's like near-death experiences. You get people who describe seeing Jesus Christ in heaven and all that stuff, and I think they're just as legitimate as somebody who has an experience and goes the other side and they see Buddha or Allah or whatever. But it makes me wonder, is the other side, are you going there? And it's like the ending to the book, Carl Sagan's Contact. The girl goes to see the aliens and it's her father. They look like her father. You know, it's like you're going to see what you perceive or what you what your perception is. Like what dreams may come, another favorite movie of mine. You know, they kind of they shape their afterlife with their own perception. You know, it makes me a big wonder if that's what's happening a lot of times with these near-death
What dreams may come.
Mm-hmm.
With Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of my top favorite movies. And in that he's shaping his own afterlife. You know, he makes it a painting. You know, his wife who commits suicide traps herself in her own kind of hell. You know, the afterlife is going to be shaped by your own perceptions.
Right, but there was an openness in all of that, where
Mm-hmm.
they found ways out.
Yeah, he's able to save his wife from hell. And what I always loved about that in that movie, if you had the
Well, when
DVD,
he saved her, it was because he gave in. He was going to lose his mind, and she wouldn't let him.
Yeah. Well, what I always loved about that movie is that they actually showed two different endings when they first premiered that movie. They had the Western ending, and they had the ending they showed everywhere else, which was like reincarnation. That they choose to get reborn.
At the end they did do that.
Yeah. Well, there's a Western version they first showed where they don't have the reincarnation stuff at the end. They don't do that. It's on the DVD. You got the non-Western ending, and you have the Western ending that they showed. And I think eventually in theaters they started showing the actual original director's ending, where they have the reincarnation. But when they first premiered it, because I saw it when it first came out, they did not have that reincarnation ending at the end. Because they didn't think, you know, they want to. It's already bad enough you're touching the afterlife and God, and people might get upset religiously with that. So let's not go into the reincarnation thing. I guess in the West, I don't know if that was their thought or whatever. Now I think more people are accepting of it. You know, I see it in my conversations talking about my son and that with friends and coworkers and stuff about what's going on. That people are more accepting of that idea of reincarnation. But again, when it comes to the afterlife and people have this transformative experience and they see Jesus in that afterlife, you know, they're going to be more reaffirmed to be a Christian when they come back. But is that just their perception that why they saw Jesus when they got there? I mean, we can't answer that question.
Right.
But it's one of my wonders, you know, the thoughts I have about these near-death experiences. You know, people, you know, your perception is going to shape what that afterlife's going to be. You know, or if you think you're going to be a ghost, is that why you end up being a ghost? You know, you end up haunting a place, you know, because you thought that's how afterlife's going to be. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have answers to that.
Yeah, these are all just questions and stuff. In these experiences, too, I mean, did you get into the alien side of things where people are telling you about
There were
their
a couple of
experiences?
experiences like that. There was one where a young girl, she was a woman an older woman when she told me the story. But she was a young girl, and she went to sit out in the backyard, and she looked up, and there was a huge object in the sky. And so she ran to her father, who was working underneath a car, and she got him to come. But when he got there, there was nothing there. And so she said, but it was there. It really was there. And he was like, yeah, right, whatever.
Yeah, a lot of people have that experience. Mine, I was 16
I had
years
another
old.
person that lost time. They got up, and the two of them, they were near an airport where they lived, and they saw this object, and then they lost time, and then they came back.
Did they ever do any regression?
It didn't help.
No. And see, because, you know, you wonder the lost time, were they taken? That's the question. You know, were they taken, and was there, you know, that memory erased? Is the common theme in alien abduction. My experience when I was 16 was weird because I was with 4 other people, and we were just standing there smoking cigarettes, like 16-year-olds shouldn't be doing. I was getting ready to head home. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and I suddenly got this weird, like, I don't know what to describe, like a buzzing in my head or a weird feeling, and something made me feel to look up. What was weird is we all looked up, saw this thing, no lights, but it was like rectangular, kind of cylindrical shaped, and it was very boxy and stuff, and it was like 500 or 600 feet above us, downtown Michigan City. and you could see the lights from the street lights reflecting off the bottom of it, but it was completely silent and just went right over our heads downtown Michigan City and just went off into the distance. The next day, only one of them could slightly recall that event. The other three could not. I'm like, what are you talking about? How can you not remember what we saw last night? What is that?
Yeah, that's an issue. That's an issue with some people. They don't recall things. I couldn't interview somebody that couldn't recall either one of their experiences, either their paranormal experience or a hypnosis experience. If they just passed out, and that was there's nothing to do.
Yeah. But they didn't pass out. They were there, conscious. We were talking about. We're like, "Oh my God, what is that?" I'm like, "Well, I got to go home."
Right, I know.
Like, oh
but
my God.
I'm just saying, I was the hypnosis.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, get rid of that out of there. We don't promote in the chat room. I was looking for questions in the chat room. Yeah, no. We don't do that. If you see that in there, Jamie, get rid of that. No self-promotion in my chat room. Thank you. I don't know if we had any good questions in the chat room. No callers tonight. Where anybody calling with their supernatural experience tonight would be great. Let's see if we had a question in the chat room. Did you have anything, Jamie? We have a lot of stupid people I see we need to get out of here. Like, I'm seeing a number of comments that need to go. So I'm trying to read. I don't know. But, let's see. I thought I saw a question. Sorry, I was trying to find a question in the chat room there, but I got distracted by some stuff that needs to go. All right. But any other interesting stories you want to share from the book tonight? I think we're going to end the show early because I'm not getting callers, so we're probably going to end it here soon.
Okay.
But I want you to see if there's any other information you wanted to get out tonight.
I had another person that had an experience with her dead grandmother, and she was at an arts and crafts show, and she had been presenting some of her paintings, and she went out to get in her car, and she wasn't thinking about her grandmother. She didn't have any thoughts about her grandmother, and suddenly her grandmother's in her mind saying, "Put your seatbelt on."
Oh.
Which she never does. And she put her seatbelt on, and about 15 minutes down the road, she rolled her car 3 times and had the seatbelt on, and the windshield came within an inch of her body or face.
Yeah.
And the police officer who showed up said, "You're lucky. You're really lucky."
Yeah.
But I believe that was a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard those stories
And
before. Right?
she was kind of atheist at first, and then it changed her. So there was the transformation piece too, where she began to believe that something had taken place.
I think that's one of the most amazing for people that have no belief in this at all, and then have this kind of experience is pretty incredible. We do have a phone call. See, I just got to threaten to end the show early to get somebody to call in. Who do we got on the line?
Hey guys. Hey guys.
Hey Lou. Who do we got?
I just want to say that you guys are doing a great job today. I love the show. I'm here. I heard you had no callers, so I just wanted to call in and express my gratitude for you guys doing a good job today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for calling in. Did you have your own
no
supernatural
problem.
experiences at all, or something you wanted to share tonight?
I don't, but I am into the paranormal type stuff.
Yeah.
Me and my family, we're deeply into that type of stuff. I haven't actually had any experiences myself, but I love hearing about it, and that's why I love your show.
Well, you know, I've had paranormal investigators with me. The reason they got into it is because they didn't have any experiences, and they weren't skeptical like you. They're open. They want to try to have an experience, and boy, is it a great thing when you're there and they do for their first time.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things is when you have a paranormal a team of people and you have those guys that have never had that experience, and you get to be there when they see like one was this investigator never had experience and got to see this glowing light that went through this room and down up these stairs. He's like, oh my God, it's like his first. It's like, mind blown.
Yeah,
Finally.
it's always so cool to hear about it. I haven't had mine yet, but I'm hoping someday.
The number one thing I tell everybody is with these experiences that you probably will one day, and usually it comes through a family member. So a family member passing. That's the number one I get from people is some kind of connection when that happens. As sad of a moment it is, a lot of people have that, some kind of connection experience. It might be small, it might be big, but it seems to happen to so many people I know.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having thank you for a wonderful show. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Oh.
It's a great show tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you for calling in. Do it more
And
often.
thank you, Dr. Fredrick Woodard.
Thank you.
I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. It's been wonderful hearing you guys tonight.
Well, definitely check out his book. All right. Thanks for calling in.
Definitely. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Oh, well, he tried. He called in. Didn't have a story, but he called in. There you go. I just got to threaten to end the show early. That's right. But he got into getting into paranormal investigating or all that. I've had these people. You do parapsychology, or you do it as a paranormal investigator at all? I think I saw. In your bio.
I do both. Yes.
Yeah. Have you had anything interesting happen on a case, or anything interesting that you've investigated?
I remember one time a funny experience was I had we were using a spirit box, and this person was communicating a little bit. And so I said, so how can we help you? Impossible.
They said impossible.
And I was just, okay, all right, that's fine.
I was not a big believer in spirit boxes early on when they first started getting popular. And I had one investigator, she always wanted to bring one. But I got my mind changed pretty quick when I heard this, it was SB7. And I heard it, we started getting actual, something coming through. It didn't sound like it was a radio thing. And it had it say, it said its name was Ivan. And there was some other stuff. And this woman came back to her house after we did the investigation. I said, does the name Ivan mean anything? He goes, oh, yes, my uncle who had passed away a couple months ago. And that's the name. That's who kept coming through is this Ivan. Right. So I'm like, okay, there's something to this. And now we've done shows and we do live spirit box on the show and have people call in and we will get responses to people and, could it be, us just our brains hearing something and making something out of it? Yes. But I've had things come across and we've had audio come across through that there's no way. There was one time it came through. There was no way it even came from the device. It was actually audio that came into the show audio, and was saying the nickname of a caller's friend, Peanut Butter and Jelly. It was our paranormal mama, Rhodey Speak, called in, and it was incredible. It came right, not even out of the spirit box, came right into the show audio. So I love. I got for me, I wanted when I first got into paranormal investigating, it's like I want to get that proof. The show, I don't think you'll ever get the proof. What I really got into it was helping people understand what they're experiencing, especially in haunted homes, residentials.
Yeah,
my wife's first one was haunted.
I think the whole key is that the supernatural experiences are individually done. They're for each individual. They're not made for group like programming.
Yeah, I mean there are experiences people have together,
They're
and see stuff.
personal.
Right, but I mean,
Personal.
but they're very individual for each person, very unique.
Well, that's true. I told you about the green floating head I saw with my cousin. We're only a month apart in age. We were like 4 or 5 years old. I remember that thing starting with a moaning, crying I heard before this thing popped through the wall and was floating around the room, screaming at me and all that. My cousin, his recollection of it was he saw the green floating head, described it like I did. I saw it, but he heard no sound. It made no sound to him. He heard no sound. That he doesn't remember screaming or moaning or crying or anything. He just remembers it flying around the room and us booking it out of there. Like you didn't hear the screaming, the wailing, the crying, like it was, pounding in maybe I was hearing it in my head, I was only 4 or 5. It's really hard to try to analyze a 4 or 5 year old, your memory at 4 or 5 years old. But I've always found it interesting that he didn't hear the noises, hear the crying. That's how it alerted me that something was up. I thought his mom was crying. I remember that. I remember thinking that my aunt was crying, and this green floating head comes popping through the room and is screaming and wailing at us. The noise is what I really remember besides seeing it, but nope, that's not the experience he had. He saw it, but did not hear it at all. And this is 4 or 5 year old kids experiencing it, so I don't know. That's the perception.
Right.
I mean, it led me down the path to. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it's hard to know each individual experience when it's something like that. Was it you shared that with someone else, so that it was more than just you?
Yeah, that means what made me. I mean, for me, I never forgot about it. Like I never thought that was just some weird dream I had as a little kid. It imprinted on my mind, that experience. I never forgot about it. I was haunted by it in a sense because look, like I never liked the Wizard of Oz because the Wicked Witch of the West, whatever, her green, whatever, that reminded me of the screaming green head. Like it stuck with me. My cousin Phil, we didn't talk about it again until I was like 13 or 14, and I brought it up to him. He got really white in the face. He goes, I thought that was a dream. I'm like, no, dude, I was there with you. And, he goes, yeah, but I thought that was a dream. I'm like, we didn't dream the same dream, man. I would happen. I never forgot about it. But for him, he wrote it off as a dream. Again, your memories from being 4 or 5 years old are very blurry and fuzzy, but that memory, I can still picture it in my mind, stuck with me. People I think have a lot of experiences as children, and you grow. Society and things make you think they're dreams or they're not real or that never happened. And I think that a lot of kids experience supernatural things, but they grow, they forget about it because it's written off by society.
Right, and the thing that I remember, I think I told you earlier, was the Torrington, Connecticut teacher that wrote about a bunch of stories from kids, and as the kids got older, they started forgetting all the stuff they had said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's partly. I think it's partly because of society's conditioning that these things aren't real. That they're forgetting it. I'll be curious to see with my sons with their experiences, because we've been accepting of their experiences that they've had, how much of it they'll remember. Like for Liam, for instance, how much of this memory he's had that he still has, how long that's going to stay with him.
Right.
Because we listen, we are accepting, we will talk about it. I don't push him on it, but we're accepting of it. We're not saying, oh, that's just dreams. Just, forget about it, or not listening, that we're letting him explore it if he wants, if he'll hang on to it. There's that famous story of the kid who would be a little man down. He'd have nightmares of being in a plane wreck in World War II, going down to the ocean. And his dad got the name of the ship that he was on and who he was, and did all this research. And they went there and even met some of his family members. That kid later was featured in an Ancient Aliens episode. Now he's in his 20s, and he said most of that he has forgotten, except for the main dream. The dream that he would have, the nightmare of dying, that did not leave him. A lot of the other stuff that he would tell them and say that he saw, he doesn't remember anymore. But the only thing that stuck with him is that death. And you can tell in that Ancient Aliens episode, he's talking about it, he's still emotional about it. So that stuck with him.
My parents were always really open with me, and I was open with them, and I feel like I remember as much as I'm able to remember. I'm sure there's little things from early on that I don't, but up until about 3 years old, I feel like I have a pretty good memory of everything up to this point here without any gaps, because they were so encouraging and open to it.
Yeah, I think my mom's always, it was just me and my mom for a while before she married my stepdad. But my mom, I think she's always been a pretty open person, so it might be a reason why I didn't write all these things off. That I remember these things compared to other people.
Yeah, some of the things that you remember that are validated are important. I remember when I was a little kid, I saw this image of a man with a white hood, but it was like a pointed hood, and and uh, and then when I was managing a group home, one of the schizophrenic guys come up to me and said, "Hey, a man sitting in your chair, wearing a white hood, sitting in your chair with a white hood."
Oh my.
See, I got a validation similar to that. In my mom's house, I had seen a full body apparition, a woman. She looked kind of like my mom. She would come in and kind of like look in my room at me when I was sleeping. And it was this whole thing till I asked her one day, like 6 days later, can you just not turn on my light because you're keeping me up for school? Not cool. So, like one night I actually did get up after I heard her walk away and like touch the light bulb, and it was warm and everything. But my parents and everybody, they heard shuffling. They would hear things in the hall. It was kind of like this family thing. We called it the hall lady. Well, I moved out. My sister moved out. Just my mom and dad. I was 8 when it happened. My sister's best friend from high school came over to see my mom and had her daughter with her, who at that time was 8. And so it was just my mom, her, and the daughter in the house. The daughter came down the hall to go find the cat to play with. They were visiting, time to go. Oh, did you, find Ariel? Were you playing? No, I was talking to so-and-so's sister, Jamie. And my mom said, no, Jamie's not here. And she goes, yeah. And so my mom had called me because she said that child described the exact woman I used to describe, down to the weird nightgown that she wore and everything. And there was absolutely no way for any of them to know that.
Yeah.
That was just another, I was pretty sure I knew what I saw.
Yeah.
But to hear that validation just gives you that
pretty good
extra
validation.
bit of wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, before we go, any last pieces of information or you want to get out? Jamie's been sharing the book links in there, and I think the sites we talked about earlier. But anything you want to get out to the audience?
At the end of each chapter 2 through 9, I have exercises that help open people up, that help wake people up to aspects that could make it more likely that they might have an experience if they haven't.
So it's like a guide to help people open up their perception to the experience, or to have the experience.
To have an experience,
to
be more open to have one.
Yeah.
For example, one chapter is about experiencing through feeling or thinking, not perceiving. And so at the end of the chapter, I have the exercise of having the person feel their way through the day.
It's very interesting. It's like the Force, Your eyes deceive you. Like I said, my spiritual thing I follow is I very much like my ideas. I'm like, yeah, the Force pretty much fits it. That
Well, I feel good about all the senses, because I remember when I was in my in Georgia with my first master's, I was in this class and it was perceptual psychology, and that's where I came up with the idea for my book, my first book on hypnosis. And I was in the class and she went through this video thing that was like an example of this guy with his mother, with his taxi driver, with the secretary at work, with the boss at work. And then when it was all over, she said, so what did he have in his hand when he was in the living room at home? And I was one of 3 people that got it right, which was a pencil.
Yeah.
And there was 30 or 40 people in the class, and only 3 people saw what was accurate.
Yeah, see, to me, like the greatest unknown territory for us to explore is our consciousness and our perceptions, of reality, people's experiences. Yeah, we see everything as a physical, material exploration to space, or go to the moon, or go to the bottom of the ocean. But when I was a kid, why I liked altered states is that we got to explore the mind. consciousness and the soul and the spirit. So I'm reading the book. I'm loving it. Everybody definitely check out his book, Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, Connecting with Interactive Universe. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Love to have you again. Keep in touch. Let me know if you got another book coming out too.
Yes, and maybe we could do this again down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know.
Nice.
All right, guys.
All right.
We're going to call it early since I'm not getting phone calls tonight, and I have like 3 doctor's appointments tomorrow.
All right, no problem. Have a good night.
So you guys have a good night. We will be back next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And thank you to the Patreons, $5 a month, $2 a month, $1 a month. Whatever you can help donate does help pay the bills for this show. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Have a great night. See you next week.